Fion and David, thanks for joining us here today on Member Monday.
It's good to be here.
All right, first questions are always the easiest. What's your name, what's your company name, and what's your role at the organization?
I'm David Van Bruin. I'm the CEO and co-founder, and I do a little bit of everything, but also sometimes I actually do some data science.
And I'm Fion Madan. I'm the co-founder and COO. I do everything else that David doesn't want to do.
That sounds familiar. All right, next question. What does your company do?
We provide a audit system for artificial intelligence and, in more general terms, automated decision-making systems. And we have a focus on human impact. So areas of application, not necessarily lawnmower motor monitoring, but deciding whether or not someone gets into university, whether their resume is put at the top of a list, as well as decisions in insurance and banking for automated detection of, say, fraud, social listening, and any kind of automated decision-making system that is driven by data. Machine learning model learns from that data and then produces similar decisions to what was done in the past using those models, and we provide quality assurance for the whole process.
So I know a little bit about the space, but why don't you walk me through, why is that important? Like if you're using data based on previous, if somebody's applied for a loan and you're looking at people who have passed, succeeded for a loan, why is that sometimes problematic in an AI context?
Well, it's problematic in a human context before there was artificial intelligence. And the issue is that machine learning learns from historical data, and we are very much at a cultural moment where we're understanding and addressing the sins of the past, the biases of the past, the things that people weren't worried about in the past, but we are now. And machine learning can either perpetuate the problems by learning from those behaviors and reproducing them, or machine learning can be designed in such a way that it actually does a better job than humans have done in the past.
Can you give me an example of where, like again, in granting a loan or something like that, the past data may be problematic? Just again, it's a relatively new space, so.
Sure. A public example is Amazon used artificial intelligence in their recruiting, and they would scan resumes and other job applications using historical data. I'm not positive, but I believe that they removed information about someone's protected category status, so race, age, gender, but nonetheless, there's information in a resume that a computer system is able to identify as being a, say, proxy for this information, and then understanding that in the past men had an advantage over women. It learns that, determines that this is probably a man, and then gives them an advantage just in the same way. And Amazon had to pull this from the market, or from their systems.
I've heard of another case where was it females were less likely to get loans, even if everything was all equal across income and other asset base. But if you're a female, you're less likely to get the loan, and that can be another way that AI would learn that if female were more likely to decline the loan, even though there's no income merit basis on that, right?
And anyone who's played with these systems can actually really quickly understand why some very high valued pieces of information can be learned very quickly by these systems and then completely determine the result.
Yeah, it's a brave new world, as they say. How long has your organization been around?
This comes out of work that I built on in my previous experiences professionally and academically, and the company itself was formed in the spring of this year, and Fion joined me at that time.
Um, yeah, sometimes we ask about the purpose of the organization. I feel like we maybe kind of like hovered around that question, but why does your organization exist? Why is its mission or mandate important?
The world has adapted to technology at a lightning pace over the last century, and artificial intelligence is, to my mind, one of the most important pieces of technology that we're seeing start to mature in this decade. Going forward, by the end of the decade, we're going to have a lot of processes that used to be performed by trained, educated, thoughtful humans being outsourced to automated decision systems. This is just the way the world will be. And I don't personally see, looking around, a whole lot of effort being done to ensure that it's being well governed, produced according to understood best practices in various industries. And the upside potential of doing this right means that we will have systems that are very humane and very much benefiting the whole of humanity. And that's, I think, what motivates most people that really get into these technologies. On the other hand, if it's something that we just pump out artificial intelligence systems as quickly as we can in order to hit the next cycle and meet our quarterly earnings targets, they're not going to be built in ways that benefit us. And it could, in the worst case, be a very dire situation where a lot of decisions that impact our day-to-day lives are being performed in the dark by machines that we don't understand.
John, do you have anything you'd want to add to that, or did David sum it up there?
No, and just the only thing I want to add to it is a lot of the problem we see, or at least the media portrayed it as like, oh, it's because the lack of diversity in the data sciences teams that's building these solutions. But what we found out is like there's multiple factors, right? It's not just about the team who's building it. Like I personally believe everyone has their unconscious bias. Like I want to believe that none of these data scientists want to intentionally implement like bias systems, right? But at the same time, there's so many other factors that could contribute biases in these models and data and AI solutions. So I think that's why like having an acknowledgement that this problem exists is the first step. And then like, how do we go about solving this problem is what we are here to do.
Awesome, thanks for adding that. I'm gonna go back to Fiona again. What's your background? How did you get into this line of work?
So I started my career building e-commerce platform 20 years ago. The company I was working for back then had like AI personalization, product recommendation before Amazon even had it. But there was a lot of parallel I'm seeing in that early e-commerce space where there's a lot of build versus buy decision, like building in-house or just buying a platform, right? And now that's what we're seeing in this AI space. Like there's a lot of large companies that have the resources to build AI solutions in-house, but we're seeing a lot of AI applications, auto ML, that is being built as like off-the-shelf products. And they're meant to be used by people who may or may not be aware of these like bias issues in AI solutions. So I worked on e-commerce related technology for the last 20 years. Back then, it was the #1 e-commerce platform. I think now it's considered outdated technology, so I was looking for something new to do. And that's why I joined Founder Institute. They are the world's largest pre-seed accelerator, and that's where I met David. We started a cohort with 26 people. We were down to 11 people. And I looked around the room and, you know, David is the smartest in the cohort. He has the best idea, and it's actually something that I can relate to and have some can make contribution to, so I decided to join him.
Awesome. And then David, what's your background? How'd you get into this space?
I studied philosophy at University of Waterloo and then did a master's there. I got into logic, and that when I got into my PhD at Cornell, brought me into philosophy of language, and that took me into a pursuit of a goal of taking the words that we say and representing them in formal mathematical terms that you could understand if you were a computer system. And I went to Berkeley after that, and they taught me natural language processing, which put it all together nicely for me. So I did an AI company focused on natural language processing called Visor, and we I built the initial ones, and then with my research team made a more robust cyberbullying detection system. Sexuality, substance use, depression, and mental health quickly followed. And we used that to help parents protect their children online by scanning their social media content and letting them know just if there was something of parental concern. And loved the whole process. It was when we started, the papers were saying if there's an emoji that's a happy face, probably it's happy. Sad face is probably sad. By the time I was done, we had Elmo and Bert and all of the great advances. So it was kind of whirlwind, and that brought me to, after selling the company, brought me to understand that the whole production process is something that we're still scrapping around trying to figure out, and it needs to be well governed because of the impacts that I saw in that context. There were a lot of human impacts, but looking around the world, it worries me. So I wanted to make a solution.
Maybe segues nicely into the next question, but why did you start your own business?
I think that the way that the world is going to become more equitable for human life and value to flourish is partly about arguing about who gets what and all the wrongs of this world. But what really makes a difference is to go out there and try to build something better. And you can't do that very often in a very large organization that's set in its ways. This is how it's done. And if the world's not the way that I want it to be, then I'm going to go and make it better. So I have to try. And this is my way of doing it.
Next question is, you guys are members of the RHA Online network. Do you think it's important to be part of a network like RHA Online or other networks that you've been part of? Yeah. If so, why or why not?
It's crucial. You can't create anything in a vacuum, and a company needs to be surrounded by criticisms, praises, new ideas, and a community of people that can be your evangelists as you get going. And it's impossible to build this kind of thing on your own. We need a support structure, and at the very beginning, you can't you can't get halfway as far unless you have really good advice, really good connections. And I think even things like selling to each other at an early stage is a great way to get going when you need to get some traction, as well as using everyone's network. I mean, there's a million great things that come from it.
John, you're part of the Founders Institute, so I guess you know a little bit about networks, but anything you'd like to add there?
I did a lot of reading before I decided to go on this startup journey. And one of the things that I learned is it can be a very lonely journey, and having a co-founder definitely is something that would help. And that's one reason why I definitely wanted to have a co-founder. And then the second part of being part of a network, yes, I believe there's a lot of uncertainties in startups, and the definition I like to use for startup is building a scalable business under extreme uncertainty. And so I feel like having a network, being part of a network like RHA can help not only the emotional side of being a startup founder, but also just like, I'm sure this problem is not unique to our startup, that we can learn from other startups and mentors.
Awesome. The last question I like to have before the lightning round, which is just a series of quick questions. Is there anything I should have asked you about your business or your background that I haven't asked yet?
Anything, Fion?
I guess what's our next step? What's our next goal?
All right, what's your next step? What's your next goal? Question.
Well, we're currently started our fundraising campaign for a pre-seed round, and we're looking for pilot customers. So those are our two major goals.
If somebody's listening to this who thinks that they might be a pilot customer, like what's the attribute of somebody who would be good to pilot the software?
You have to be building a decision system, probably using machine learning, and if not, at least something that is reasonably sophisticated and needs some testing. Not just there's the 3 rules that you have that goes through the process, and also be working in an area that's of human impact. That's what we're focused on. So we're putting our energies into building relationships with clients in those areas. And then it's just a matter of putting some time into thinking through areas of responsible artificial intelligence that you might not have thought of before, but that can be really detrimental to your business if it goes wrong, and also great benefit if it goes right. And then using some of your data, we test your services and do some ongoing monitoring so that it's not just a one-time thing. In the future, if you change your systems, we still monitor it. And that gets us to a lot of the value that we can offer to get started. And then we can go from there.
Are you ready for the lightning round questions? All right, so I'll maybe get Fion to answer first, and then we'll go to David with each of these. You ready? Married or single?
Married.
David?
Married.
And kids?
2.
One.
Coke or Pepsi?
Coke.
Coke.
Good answers. Mars bars or Snickers?
Ooh.
Mars.
Yeah, Mars, I think so.
Favorite movie?
The Matrix.
Mm-hmm.
Recently, I think the new Blade Runner is the last great one I saw. Not of all time, but.
No, I haven't actually seen that one, and I'm a huge Blade Runner fan. It just hasn't worked out timing.
Wait.
Favorite book?
Brothers Karamazov.
Mm-hmm.
The most recent one I like is The Hard Things About Hard Things.
That's one. I don't have it here in front of me because I actually took it home, but during the break, it's one of the 2 books I recommend to entrepreneurs that they read when they're getting started. The other one, if you're a little bit more cash flow, is Profit First. I think that there's a lot of lessons in that one. The Hard Thing About Hard Things is pretty solid. Favorite game or video game?
Duck Hunt.
Duck Hunt? Nice.
Monopoly, does it count?
Yeah, it counts. Yep. Is Die Hard a Christmas movie?
Yes. Well, technically, no. Yes.
What's you going with yes? Fion, what were you? Yes, yeah. You're banished to an island and to take only one thing with you, and note that's thing, not person. Hopefully you're banished with your significant others and children. What's the one thing that you would bring with you?
Is there electricity? Because I'd say my Nook.
There's no electricity.
My husband.
It can't be person. That's a thing.
Oh, it cannot be a person. Oh, that's a tough one. A cell phone with extra batteries, like a satellite cell phone with extra
Satellite
batteries.
phone? That's a good one. Yeah.
Fishing rod.
What's that?
Fishing rod.
Fishing rod. That's another good one. Good practical answers. All right, guys. Thanks for joining me on Member Monday, and see you on the network.
Thanks. It's great to be here.
Thank you.